Hi everybody, today I will answer one of the most common questions that people ask me. Why did you not apply for a waiver despite having an American child? That way you did not have to go back to the Philippines. I will answer that question and more, and hopefully this will give you some insights as regards this topic. In this video, I will talk about first, what is a 2-year home residency requirement, second, what is a waiver, third, what will qualify as reasons for a waiver, fourth, what happens if I file a waiver, and lastly, why did I not file a waiver application. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, I invite you to do so. I have lots of videos already, and whatever questions you have in mind about teaching and living in the US, I most likely already have a video about that. So make sure to head on to my playlists. I also have a Facebook page where you can follow me. There we could chat and you can join me during my Facebook Live. I also post lots of other information that are not necessarily a YouTube thing. Okay, let's get into it. First, what is a 2-year home residency requirement? Some exchange visitors with J1 visas are required to a 2-year home country physical presence requirement. It requires you to return home for at least 2 years after your exchange visitor program. This requirement is part of U.S. law in the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212E. In case you are a J1 visa holder currently in the U.S. and you are not sure if you are subject to the 212E requirement, you can go ahead and check your visa or your DS 2019. There's a section there that will tell you if you are required to go home. Second, what is a waiver? Okay, so you are at the end of your visitor exchange program, and if you cannot return or do not want to return home for 2 years, you must apply for a waiver. The Department of Homeland Security must approve your waiver before you can change status in the United States or receive a visa in certain categories. This waiver, if approved, will mean that you do not have to go back to your home country and stay there for 2 years. This means that you can continue to stay in the US and work if you want. Third, what will qualify as reasons for a waiver? An exchange visitor may request that the 2-year home residency requirement be waived only on the following basis. First, is the No Objection Statement or NOS. This is a statement from the exchange visitor's home country that has no objection to the waiver. Second, request for waiver made by an interested U.S. government agency. Third, fear of persecution on account of race, religion, or political opinion. Fourth, exceptional hardship to the U.S. citizen or permanent resident spouse or child of the exchange visitor. And fifth, interest of a state agency. But this one only applies to alien physicians. The No Objection Statement or NOS used to be the easiest one to obtain for Filipinos. It used to be automatic if you have an American child or children, or if you are married to an American citizen. In this way, this is the shortest one to process, also the cheapest one to process. You only need to prove that you have an American child, so you will just turn in birth certificate, including the forms that they have for applying for this kind of waiver. Or if you're married to an American citizen, then you just have to turn in your marriage certificate. But post-pandemic, a lot has changed. This is no longer automatic, and the EVP no longer entertains waiver application on this basis. There is another way to apply for an NOS, but it's a longer process. For the details, please go over to the website of EVP because I'm not going to cover that in this video. I have the link in the description box below. For other nationalities, I would also advise you to check out your government agency that is over this process, as each country has a different rule on the NOS approval. Fourth, what happens if I file a waiver? If you apply for a waiver, make sure to time this process correctly. Once an exchange visitor applies for and receives a waiver recommendation from the Department of State, they will no longer be eligible to extend their J1 status, and travel may be inadvisable. Therefore, you will want to have another plan in place, such as sponsorship for H-1B visa status once you receive a favorable recommendation from the Department of State. If you do not have an H-1B visa sponsor yet, you have to make sure to apply for a tourist visa so that when your DS 2019 has expired, you can still legally stay in the US while waiting for the result of your waiver application. However, you can no longer work legally since a tourist visa is not a working visa. Also, make sure that you apply this in secret. Do not tell your visa sponsor or your friends or your employer about it. Sometimes though, especially if your current employer would like you to stay with them and they are willing to sponsor your H-1B visa, then they will help you keep the secret, so to speak. Most visa sponsors will terminate your program if they find out that you are applying or have applied for a waiver. So it's kind of like a very tricky business. So once you have decided to apply for a waiver, make sure that you are 100% sure about it and that you will really see it through, because there are so many documentations, forms for you to complete when you apply for waiver. Once you have applied for a waiver and suppose it was not granted, this means that you have to leave the US as you will be out of status. Fifth, why did I not file a waiver application? Okay, so I kind of already stated the reason why based on the acceptable grounds for the waiver application. If the rule has not changed as regards applying for the NOS, then I would definitely have applied and 100% the waiver would have been granted and I would not have to go back to the Philippines and I could have just continued to work in the US. But like I said, having an American child or spouse as a basis for the waiver application is no longer entertained in the Philippines. It's still being entertained in other countries though. Again, check your country's agency for this one. I was then left with using exceptional hardship to the US citizen or permanent resident spouse or child of the exchange visitor as my ground for my waiver application. The hardship must be attributed to a US citizen like my son or permanent resident spouse, child, or other relatives that are relatively close to you. The J1 visa holder must be able to provide evidence or proof of hardship. J1 holders with a child or spouse that has a mental or physical condition may be able to prove exceptional hardship if the treatments are not accessible in the J1 holder's home country. However, the J1 visa waiver's exceptional hardship will not be granted for basic separation, readjustment, or any hardship caused to you, the J1 visa holder. For details on this, again, please check out the link I have on the description box below. I could have applied for a waiver using this ground, but I decided not to for the following reasons. First, I'm not financially prepared to see the whole process through. This waiver application is expensive. You will spend at least $9,000 for it. This is not something you can do on your own, so you have to retain an immigration lawyer. I am sure the fee depends on the law office, and even if you have saved enough for this, the expenses do not end there. This type of waiver can take as long as more than a year. Imagine waiting for that long, and as you wait, you cannot work because you are no longer holding a working visa and it is illegal to work. Also, when your DS 2019 expires, you have to make sure to apply for tourist visas for you and the rest of your J2 dependents. It's an extra expense. The tourist visa also is only good for 6 months, so you will have to apply for an extension each time and it's not for free. Again, you do not have income the whole time. Funds are going out and no funds coming in. You continue to pay your bills like rent, electricity, food, etc. So it's stressful for me to know that if I push through with a waiver application, I am going to have to face financial hardship there. I have a video about the expenses in the US, so make sure to watch that later. So yeah, it's scary for me to be paying those things while not having any income. I would rather spend in the Philippines whatever we have saved, you know? Second, the whole process is very long and the approval is not even guaranteed. This process, like I said, can take more than a year, and the idea of waiting for the result in an undetermined length of time and all the while not being sure if it was going to be granted or not was just taking a toll on my mental health. I have to make the decision to just go home, and I told my husband and he agreed. Third, also during that time, it was 2022, there was a rumor that the J1 J1 visa holders program might be given another extension like they did in 2021 due to COVID. If that was true then, those who applied for the waiver were no longer eligible to apply for the extension. Of course, that was just a rumor. During that time, I felt like I wanted to be eligible for that since that would be the easiest and cheapest way to stay for one more year. Fourth, I also wanted to have more options to come back to the US. When you apply for a waiver, the USCIS will have a record of that, and after the program, you can no longer back to the US on a J1 visa. But you can apply for other working visas like H1B or EB3. So because I did not apply for a waiver, I am still eligible for a J1 visa in addition to H1B and EB3. So I still have 3 options at least, so I can go back to the US. As I create this video, I am close to my first anniversary since coming back home, and I just need another year and I will be able to start my process of going back to the US again. One of my friends who also worked in the US in the same batch as I am asked me whether I sometimes feel like I should have applied for a waiver like my friends did. I told her that with all that is happening and has happened to me and my family, it has validated that my decision was right. My eldest brother passed away in September 2022, and if we were in the US waiting for the result of the waiver, I would have been devastated because I would not have been able to be with my family and support them during that time. Also, my son is happier being able to play with his young uncles and cousins here. We got to spend Christmas, New Year, and birthdays with our friends and relatives here in the Philippines. My parents were so happy to finally see him and me after so many years of being away and so on. Also, as I say here in the Philippines, I appreciate the experience I had in the US. I learned so many things there, and I am definitely applying them here now that I'm back to teaching. I am more grateful, and I feel like if I go back to the US to teach again, I know I will do even better when it comes to dealing with the challenges there and also when it comes to managing our finances. Our stay here made it clear for us what we should do next time as far as investments go. So yeah, I know that it's the right decision for me and my family. Of course, for others, they have prepared for the whole process, and I know that that is also the best decision for them. And I always pray for a positive result for my friends who did apply for waivers. Ultimately, it really depends on how you weigh the pros and the cons with respect to your own situation and options. That's it for me today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!